Hey guys, this is part two now of the blog from earlier. The earlier blog post video is more about the frost for this weekend and freeze alerts that we're talking about. Now let's talk about what's going to happen after that. And to do that, we really don't need to look much here at the east because this is going to be the dominating factor really for the weekend. It's what's going to happen to the west. And when you look at the jet stream pattern, you can actually see a pattern developing here where we've got several areas of low pressure that have been digging across the Pacific heading into the Gulf of Alaska, and then working their way through Canada and over to the east. And this cutoff low, which is causing the flooding and dust storms now in the southwest, is preventing these systems from pretty much becoming west to east, which is part of the reason why a lot of this area stays dry in the west, but it's also drying out a good chunk of the southeast corner of the country because of this factor as well. What can change that? Anything tropical. And that would be anything in the Gulf, in the Caribbean, or perhaps something that can work its way in and develop into the Gulf. Either way, I don't see a lot of change in our weather pattern until the tropics likely get involved. And the signals are all laid out that the tropics will likely get involved and become more and more of a factor as October wears on and perhaps into early November. The models are going to do horrible with that kind of a setup. So caution yourself with the models, even though I'm going to show you a couple. Caution yourself with them because, again, they're not going to handle the southern features very well, the southern branch features very well at all. It'll handle the northern branch pretty well. I mean, there's plenty of cold air here to work with. But the jet stream pattern is going to be very erratic, and it's not really going to be favorable to send plunges of cold air right into our area unless we get something to shake things up in the southern features. And that's going to be the big debate. So, having said all that gibberish, here's how the GFS is looking. Obviously, you can see the colder air in play now and the warmer air off to the west. And these lines, by the way, are the pressure lines you're looking at the surface. All right, so the colder air moves out, and again, you see these lows just kind of rotate around each other into Canada. We begin to get some warmer air influence back into the Ohio Valley for next week, which is good. And then we get into a situation where something tropical, whether it's an actual low or something more serious, tropical storm or hurricane, tries to develop. The model has been hinting about this for at least 5 or 6 days now, that it would develop somewhere near Houston. That's important because at the same time, we do have energy dropping down out of Canada. Question is this going to remain separate, or are they going to combine and work together? And the models every day look a little different on how that scenario will play out. If it remains separate, this is likely going to be just a passing area of tropical moisture. This system then would likely not combine and head off to the east, and we're back to a warmer scenario that would follow after that. This is as far as the models can see for GFS in the 26th, and you can see that it's trying its best with this upper feature to become more dominant, but I got to stress that if this tropical system is a little more dominant, then that may still the thunder here from the northern branch. But a lot of debate on how this is really going to set up. It's an interesting setup because you've got cold air involved and you've got tropical moisture and a ton of it. And the combination of the two can lead to some wild events sometimes when they meet up. Usually we see that on the eastern seaboard, not so much in the nation's heartland this time of the year. So it is an interesting setup, but confidence on this, on how this is going to work out, for me anyway, is very, very low. So again, I stress on that it's an interesting setup, but that's just it. That's all I can really say about it until I get a better handle on these features on the northern and southern branches. Here's the European model. Again, showing the colder weather moving through. We, again, just like the GFS, warm things up next week. And then it, too, shows the tropical feature getting involved. It was hard to see it there. It was real quick. But it moves in, but it takes it away. I mean, just an area of low pressure that quickly gets absorbed by a stronger northern branch feature. Now, that would lead to some decent heavy rain for our area along the front with the system. But the question is, what will the system likely do? Well, it all depends on what happens here in the Atlantic at that point. Is the system going to cut up to the northeast, or is this going to have a chance to dig into the eastern part of the country? And the latest long-term Euro, I can't show you that, but the ensembles on the Euro anyway indicate a better chance for high pressure being controlled rather than low pressure, which would indicate more of a drier scenario, which tells me this would likely miss us. But again, the models are going to have a field day on that. Here are the numbers that the GFS ensembles are spitting out. You see the chilly air we got now this weekend. You see the warm up next week. And then it gets toward Halloween. It's kind of up in the air on how the tropical system out of Texas or the low pressure across the Canadian border, how they interact, how that influences our highs. It's a little unsure how that will play out. The CFS model is showing that later this month, the better chance to have warmer than average weather is going to be over the east, cooler than the average west. It doesn't really show us a significant flip for us until about mid-November. So, which, by the way, is what happened last year. We had a mid-November snowstorm, actually. 3 inches of snow happened in mid-November. But we did have snow, flakes, a trace of snow and sleet on Halloween last year. If this pattern looks the way it does right now, that is not going to happen this year. It's going to be way too warm for that. Having said all that, I think we're really going to have to take this as we always do, a step-by-step process. But when you deal with October, November, you're dealing with the tropics more so than ever. And they can be wild card in events like this, especially with the models. They can throw havoc in them. So don't get too caught up in the everyday runs on how these systems are going to interact. Just know that we're going to watch it carefully. There's a chance we may see a good 7 to 10 day stretch of dry weather before this system out of the west and the tropical low across Texas has an idea of what it wants to do. So until that we get a better handle on that, dry weather and warm is pretty much the way to go. I know it sounds boring for you weather lovers. You want some excitement. I get it. But we have some interesting features out there. We do. They're on the map. But this is the groundwork. This is the important month where the groundwork gets laid and we really start to identify patterns. And I'm paying close attention because I've always felt that the patterns you see in October really set the tone for the winter. That's why I have not finished my winter forecast yet. I still have 15 days to get it done. And there's a reason why I put it on Halloween, because I really want to identify as much as I can to see if I see any changes I need to make. So there you go, guys. That's how it stands for the longer term today. So I hope all that made sense. Sorry. Have a good Friday night.